Good evening, and welcome to the Greenfield Public Schools School Committee meeting. It's Wednesday, December 14th, 2022, at 6 p.m. We're at the John Zahn Community Center, 35 Pleasant Street in Greenfield, and GCTV is recording this meeting. We will move right into the roll call and the call to order. Secretary Ekstrom, or, yeah, you want me to do it? Yes, I will do it. She's going to check my work. She's going to check my, we'll follow up later with each other. Okay, so I'm just going to go down to my right. Oh, there's a cheat sheet. Look at that. Secretary, or Member Johnson Musad. Secretary Ekstrom. Here. And I am here. And Mayor Wiedegartner.
Here.
And Member Wall.
Here.
Member Martini.
Here.
And Member Deneve.
Here.
Thank you. Everyone is here. We have a quorum, and we are called to order at 6:01 p.m. And we will first do approval of minutes, 2 meetings to look at, October 17 and November 9. We can do those as a consent motion. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from those 2 meetings? Don't all jump.
So move.
Second.
Okay, and any discussion? Hearing, did you have some? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay,
I did.
I could do this and then I could tell, oh, Mayor Wiedegartner, yes.
Did we approve the minutes from the October 17 last meeting? No? Okay.
I honestly don't recall. We can,
Oh, okay.
oh, that, yeah,
I
yes.
just, because I wasn't at that meeting, so but I remembered that from the last one, so.
Okay. Hearing no discussion, we'll go to a vote. Any no votes? Any abstentions? Abstain. Well, it's a consent, so you can abstain from the whole, they'll still pass, yeah. All right, and those pass with 1 abstention from Mayor Wiedegartner. I kind of feel like the microphone might not be loud enough. Can everyone hear okay? Yeah? Okay. He's looking into it. Okay, we'll move on to public comment. Do we have public comment, Susan Farber? We did it as a consent for both. Yeah, I saw him fiddling with some over there. Yep. We'll walk you through it. Have a seat. If you just hold the button the first time, it'll eventually turn green. You got to kind of hold it down until it turns green. There you go. Move it towards you pretty close. And you'll need to state your name and the town you live in, and you have 3 minutes.
Is this working?
It is working, yep.
Jesus Leva, 32 High Street, Greenfield, Mass. I'm not sure if my comments are for the committee or the people behind me, so I guess I'm talking to both. I can't help but wonder, as I had gone to a couple of city council meetings and looked at some of the budget information around the schools, and remembering time looking at the same information when I lived in Northampton, that there really isn't a local solution for, or at least not a permanent local solution for more school funding. It's the state that has the capacity for more funding for the schools, and it's the state that is ultimately shorting us over the long run. I mean, it's only the last couple of years where we've actually seen, significant increases in the Chapter 70 funding. I mean, for all of the years before that, it was stagnant and didn't even keep up with inflation. The recent vote that happened at the state level for in favor of passing the Fair Share Amendment, that was a 51 to 49% vote by voters in Massachusetts. So, I mean, there's some energy and momentum to see, more advocacy for, I think, state school funding, but I think it's really up to us as a community to join with other communities locally and in the region to put our collective, thumbs on the scale to make sure it actually happens. I think I want to see either some people from this committee or some people behind me sort of, start to organize around the idea of trying to get, the state to provide adequate funding that, matches inflation. I think currently the MTA and the Mass Budget Association right now are trying to see a $98 million increase in the state's budget towards a Chapter 70 aid, just to basically match inflation on top of what's being put into new Chapter 70 aid from the Student Opportunities Act. Like we're seeing like a $400 million increase this year in Chapter 78 at the state level over just the normal 100 million increase that we generally see annually that barely keeps up with inflation. So, and we see that money locally, like in the budget book, like for FY22, it's 13,958,000. For FY23, the Chapter 78 is 15,704,000. So that's where we're seeing an actual increase, and I think
Your 3 minutes is up, but just finish your thought, please.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is that we need to start reaching out locally to organize around trying to get more state, around advocating around state aid, and we need to start reaching out to other individuals and groups, regionally to start to continue to do this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, again. I saw some of you earlier today. Judy Bennett. I live in Greenfield and I teach at Greenfield High School. I guess I'll be a little bit of a broken record, but we're about 167 days out from a contract for our Unit C IAs and 532 days for Unit A teachers that our contracts are expired. I do want to thank Chair Proietti. I know 1 or 2 city council meetings ago, you kind of came and put a plug in for teachers and funding the contract stabilization fund. So I just want to say thank you for that. So there's been some news, if you've heard about it, like inflation. There's been some cost of living adjustments for Social Security, 8.7%. The military is also giving a cost of living adjustment, 4.6%. Mass state employee retirees are getting a 5% cost of living adjustment. I do things on the side for my own self to boost my own income. I mentor at the building. I'm a class advisor. Sometimes I take over running the SATs. All those little bits help. But I just want to say that it seems like right now the money is available in Greenfield. We've had record amounts of pandemic money, Chapter 70 funds, the Fair Share Amendment passed, and so that money is something we can, although it's an unknown amount, can be looked forward to. And I want to believe that the district is negotiating with teachers and IAs in good faith. And I just want to, do you really think a reasonable person would view a cost of living adjustment for our teachers and IAs unreasonable or unfair? I mean, I don't think any reasonable person would say it's not. And it really is hurting our dedicated teachers and IAs if we just continue to deny them a salary adjustment that everyone would probably agree is justified and that we have the funding for. So I'm just asking you to support your teachers and our IAs. We don't need to hear about, teachers do it for the outcome, not the income. I don't really need lip service like that. I just want my colleagues to be paid a living wage. I want a reasonable cost of living adjustment. and that our children's education isn't kind of held hostage to whatever budget calculations are being used to justify this postponement. And it just doesn't seem quite right. So thank you.
Thank you.
Masks and hearing aids are a bad combo. Good evening, Doug Selwyn, Greenfield. Attending the last couple of meetings and hearing about the budget negotiations and the stalled negotiations or wherever they're at, and thinking about how I've been in education or related to education for a very long time, and it's the same story over and over. There's never enough money to actually educate our children. They're just, I mean, there is enough money, but it doesn't reach the schools. And as was mentioned earlier, Jesus talked about there's not enough money coming from the state. So each district is going through this individually. And most of the districts in Western Massachusetts are going through this sort of drowning individually. But it's really coming from a common cause, which is that there's not enough money. It's a wealthy state, but the money's not getting to the schools. There was a presentation 4 or 5 years ago. I think, Susan, you were the only person on the committee who was there when the mask folks came up and talked about the comparison of what it actually costs to do education, what it actually costs to work with children with special needs, what it actually costs to insure teachers and personnel, and what the state budgets for that. There's a gross disparity there. There just isn't enough money. And as long as we continue to approach this as an individual district, we're not going to get anywhere. I think we have to work with other districts. We have to work with as many districts as we can find to stand together for funding. And I really want to push or encourage the district and the school committee together to join with other districts. There is a group that is starting to do some organizing work around coming up with a common message to bring to the other side of the state, to convince them that our children deserve the best we can do, and we're not doing the best we can do. So I'm just here to let you know that there's a group that's starting to do that, to encourage you to reach beyond the city limits, to reach into every corner of the city limits, to do what you can right now, but also to recognize that we have to work together with others. And I'm hoping that we will continue to work together as an entire group and community on behalf of the kids. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yikes. Can you hear me? Oh, come on, Amy.
Please move it closer.
For you, I'll do it. Is that better?
Yeah.
All right, my name is Susan Voss. I live at 158 Log Plain Road in Greenfield. I am an IA at the Academy of Early Learning, which is the best job in the world. And I am the Unit C rep for the GEA. I timed this. It comes out to just over 3 minutes. I will do my best, Amy. I would like to thank most of the school committee for your support to settle the Unit C and Unit A contracts that have expired. I know that many of you are going to add over the financial piece of this negotiation, and I want you to know that we appreciate it. I hope that we can get this done soon. Please continue to support our GPS staff by asking the City Council to increase the money in the city's contract stabilization fund. I would like to tell you a little bit about our negotiating teams. We work all day with our kids, encouraging them, supporting them, and teaching them. Then we head to the negotiations table. For most of us, we don't have a few minutes in between to see our families or to check in on how their days have gone, or even time to breathe. Then we sit at the table, and for us, for Unit C, we're trying to get a living wage for our colleagues and try to get much needed support for the kids we work with and for ourselves. It's exhausting. And it has continued since spring and all through the summer and into fall, and next week we start winter. It's a lot. We're tired. We appreciate you working with us for the common good. I was part of the last contract negotiations with Susan Ekstrom, where our Unit C was able to secure a $3 an hour increase across the board for IAs. That brought our starting step to $15, which was the minimum wage at the time. Yes, our starting step was below minimum wage. It's a municipality thing. This time we're fighting for a living wage. So many IAs have second and sometimes third jobs to make ends meet. They work 2 or 3 jobs to afford rent, heat, and food. They work a full-time job and yet can't afford basic necessities. Some of us are very fortunate to have a spouse or a partner who makes enough money to make up the difference. Many don't have that luxury. Social Security, as Judy said, is getting a cost of living increase of 8.7% for the coming year. Cost of living has skyrocketed. Food, fuel, electricity have all gone up. And this needs to be taken into account for our members as well. Living paycheck to paycheck keeps becoming more and more difficult for many, yet the cost of living is never mentioned in any of our financial offers. In our last contract negotiations, Unit C was asking for an increase for IAs in a dollar amount as opposed to a percentage, and we're doing the same now. Our IAs are the ones who are supporting some of our most challenging and challenged kids every day. They are hands-on. Our IAs are some of the lowest paid in the school system, and we feel very strongly that any increase should benefit all IAs equally, not give a little bit more to some who make a little bit more, because we're in this together. Finally, staffing has been a problem in all our schools and across the Commonwealth, and substitutes are few and far between. The past few weeks, we have had a wonderful substitute at AEL. She retired from being our nurse and decided she wanted to stay at AEL and help out with our kids. She loved our kids and our staff. She's kind, she's compassionate, and she is amazing with our kids, and it shows. She makes $13 an hour. It's appalling. And we're gonna lose her because of this, because she can't afford to do that. And this is one of the reasons we get few subs in our district. Gil Montague is paying just under $17 an hour. It's all one pool of people. Why come to Greenfield when
Your time is up. I do need you to finish.
Okay. My question to you is, what kind of schools do you want for the city? For good quality schools, you need good quality people. My plea is for all the staff in the Greenfield Public Schools. Please start showing that the work we do is important. Support us and pay us accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we will move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is the report from our student representatives. Hi, guys.
Hello. So to begin, we're going to start with Student Council. Our advisor helped run the National Council for Student Advisors last week in Boston. There were over 250 in attendance from across the country. 5 of our members have completed their Moose Youth Awareness Talks and are now working on their final presentations. Last Friday, we held our first Kids Night Out, where we had 28 youth spend 3 hours with us. We colored, played board games, watched Encanto, and played in the gym. It was a blast, and it helped raise a lot of money for upcoming leadership conferences. We are currently planning our winter pep rally for December 22nd, and we are collaborating with Key Club and athletics to provide options of a dodgeball tournament and skating at the rink.
For Key Club, the GHS Key Club would like to thank all students and staff for a great turkey trot this year. This month, they will be reading to students at the Academy of Early Learning from books generously donated by the Greenfield Kiwanis Club. Be Carrying Me and I Want to Be by Mary DeFarmino. Okay. So a gift from Greenfield Kiwanis and some wonderful donations, we are making and giving food baskets to the GHS families in need. Many Key Club members are volunteering at the Festival of Trees, which raises and donates money to local charities. Students will be helping as Santa and his elves at the Salvation Army Christmas parties December 16th. Last but not least, we are helping to sponsor a toy drive for True Christmas, a Turner's Falls-based agency who would help donate toys to local children in need.
This Thursday and Friday, NHS will be participating in Adopt a Family, where members have been shopping, wrapping, and fundraising for Adopt a Family.
French Club hosted the show/fundraiser Coffee House on Thursday, December 8th. Over 100 people attended and enjoyed performances from students and staff, coffee and refreshments, and raffle prizes. We raised a considerable amount of money for our upcoming trip to Quebec in April 2023. We look forward to more fundraisers and social events after the new year.
This month, Spectrum had a movie bonding night where they watched The Fantastic Mr. Fox. They also had a crafting meeting where they made snowflakes with rainbow origami paper to decorate our bulletin board with information about local LGBT+ services for teens. We're looking forward to planning our bake sale when we return from winter break.
Art Club have been working on various personal art projects this month. Students are painting individual bricks in the art room. A few students made masks and others have been working on dioramas. Still others have been using the time to put in extra work on art projects they have already been working on in art class, which they are taking. We have also begun to discuss ideas for group projects in the future that can be displayed in public places.
Winter sports have started recently, and you can check Arbiter Live for the schedules for those games, or you can come see a game and support our student athletes. 4 students went to Gillette Stadium for the MIAA Sportsmanship Conference. Carly Blanchard, Trevor Kacheski, Ainsley Flynn, and Jackson Karen were those students. A good time was had by all, and they had lunch on the 50-yard line. Happy holidays from the Green Wave Nation.
The Library Club will be hosting a series of 3 winter book-to-movie events. We will be showing Little Women on Thursday, December 15th in a partnership with the Greenfield Public Library. Doors open at 5:30. We will have pizza and popcorn before the movie. Library Club has also started planning their 3rd annual Comic-Con to be held in March 2023.
And finally, just some events and concerns at GHS. So the first one, as a result of a new policy recently implemented within the last week, all bathrooms in GHS, with an exception of those in the cafeteria, have been closed throughout the day. This was done as a response to the increase of misconduct and vandalism in the bathroom, and is an attempt to monitor the usage of bathrooms. With this change, all students are now required to be funneled into one set of restrooms outside of the gym, leading to prolonged time spent waiting in lines. This change is done with grievance from many students who find this bottlenecking to be inconvenient and leading to much more time spent out of class. With so many students now left with only one available restroom, the line to use said bathroom means that students are waiting much longer than usual to have access to these facilities and return to class in a timely manner, something that was already an issue in some cases. Another concern brought up by many students and some parents at GHS revolves around the status of the music department. This year, the only musical course offered at GHS is a band class during period 1, which comes once every 2 days. Beyond this, there are no other band classes, choruses, or anything of that nature. This makes it extremely difficult for students who want to pursue music in its various forms to do so because the time frame for which they have to do so is so limited. Unless a student's schedule lines up in such a way that they are able to attend this class, they have to look for time after school to practice, which is very limited. This is not to say that it's the fault of the band teacher who has to travel between the high school and the middle school. It is simply to acknowledge that students would like the opportunity to continue pursuing their interests in music and have more courses offered to allow that. Beyond that, many students and parents would like to be a part of these decisions and be informed of developments as they occur so that there is better understanding of what is going on and so that the opinions of those affected can be shared and fairly represented in the decision-making process. That covers everything we have, but if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. I would open it up to questions from the committee. Any questions for their student representatives? I have one question. You're here as our representatives. When you have the information at the end, are you collecting that from other students, and what is your process?
So some of it is collection from students, some of it is just what we notice. In regards to the second segment, which is the band, a lot of that has been collected just from what we are told by students affected. So whether it's like conversations that we have throughout classes, or people coming to us and stating that this is an issue, that is usually what we take into consideration. In regards to the bathroom policy, it is a very similar thing. One, being in the building, we see that that is the current situation, and then also, again, people coming and having conversations, you see that those are the general concerns and grievances of the people affected.
Sure, thank you. I would, because there's some details in there, I think it's appropriate for me to give the superintendent an opportunity to speak to anything that might be relevant there.
Of course.
I think that, it would be best for Shane and Nate to have a conversation with Mr. Morrison about the bathroom situation, since that's a specific building issue. What I can speak to is the situation with music electives, that the schedule was created after class signups. So students had, of course, the opportunity around February is a ballpark to choose courses for the upcoming year. And we had so few students sign up for music courses that we only were able to run the one. So if in fact students are concerned, I think that's something that they should share with their guidance counselors. And then Mr. Morrison gets the numbers of students who sign up for all of the courses, and we build the schedule based on that. So those folks who are bringing that concern to you definitely should be asked to go talk to their guidance counselors so that we get good information about who's looking for music courses while we're trying to create next year's schedule. That would be really helpful.
Understood. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Any further questions or comments from the school committee? Thank you, guys. I look forward to your report every month, and have nice holidays and a nice break. Okay, we're on to the administration reports, and we've got first up ASKP.
Quick report this evening. This past Tuesday, December 6th, we had a district-wide mentor and mentee gathering at the cafeteria at the high school. I included some fun photos so you could see our festivities, but it was a lovely gathering. We had about 55 people out of the 80 attend, and we had a few snacks, we played a few games, made a few ornaments, but really the conversation of the whole vibe of the afternoon was really just positive and reflecting. As Judy stated, being a mentor in the district is definitely something that I appreciate that teachers do take on as a role, because they are so vital in being a sounding board and a resource for our newest hired teachers. So I really do appreciate all that they do. But it was a lovely afternoon to get together, and many of the mentees, we did just a popcorn, positive stand up, say something you wanted to share. And so many of the mentees really just wanted to thank their mentors for being there for them. So it was lovely. I also have the pleasure of being a mentor. I'm mentoring Principal Fenimore at the middle school, along with Principal Rehor at Newton Elementary this year, and just really enjoy spending my time with them as well and helping them as they lead their first year in their buildings this year. So it's been fun to meet with them and mentor them. On library news, we are moving on to the Academy of Early Learning. And a survey recently went out to the teachers so that we could identify their needs. Their library is a little different than elementary, so we're trying to really hone in as to what our preschool students need. Deb Kern is staying on, and she's helping to go through their collection and resources and really align what they have access to with their new Get Set for School curriculum. So I'll keep you updated on that once we get the results of the survey and continue our work there. We applied recently for another grant. We are involved in the High Quality Instructional Material Professional Learning Network with DESE for high school math products, and a grant was posted for us to be able to support what we've previously bought. So in order to continue professional development on CKLA and Amplify, as well as the K through 7 math materials, we applied for up to $100,000 to help us with that in the coming year. So we're waiting word from DESE and hope we get approved for that grant. The high school math department is in their learn and prepare phase, and we're doing some investigation of high school math curriculum resources. I believe we are looking at the top 8 that rate highly in Curate and Ed reports. They met this afternoon before we had our NESDEC meeting at the high school, and we're going to at least field test illustrative math because that is what the middle school is using. So they are, really thinking that they should at least field test it to see the continuity from grades 5 through 7 and if it would work to go through grades 8 through 12. So they're going to start that process with some professional development in January and then field test in February. And then we're going to look at the other resources and see what other choices that they're interested in. So it's very exciting that that's happening there. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the school committee for ASKP? Please, Member Johnson-Musad.
Can you just remind me Deb Kern's role? Is she as a consultant or a staff member? They're doing the review of all the materials?
She's a consultant. She's a certified librarian. She retired from Northfield's library. So she works part-time here, part-time at the Irving Library. She actually subs at the Greenfield Public Library as well, so you might actually know her.
But she's retired.
She is, yes. She can't stay away, Glenn.
Was that it, Glenn? Someone else? Member Deneve, did I see her? Member Martini, go ahead.
I just wondered if you could explain more specifically what it means when you say that the grant you've applied for would support the unpacking and navigation of the new curricular materials. Could you just explain a little bit more fully what you would use the $100,000 for?
Sure. So part of the money can be used for stipends, so teachers could meet after hours and be paid for the work that they do. A lot of what we're finding in the first year of implementation is you don't know what you don't know until you actually roll out the curriculum resource, and having the time to actually talk in grade level teams to discern data that you've gone through for the first year and see, well, maybe we didn't need to cover that unit or all of those lessons in that unit, and we could, spend more time on this because we look at other data that our students need more help in. So most of it is really to support not only stipends but professional development. So we've had ongoing PD with the grant that we're involved in this year. So we've had site visits from CKLA, actual trained people that deliver the curriculum. So they've come on site and spent the day and talked to our teachers, watched lessons, given them feedback, and that could actually continue. So that money could be used to have that happen. We also have had people do virtual sessions during our PD days, and that would be something that we could continue. Illustrative math is the same. We've had ongoing PD, but we want to actually use our resources well and be sure that we're looking at data and see what our students are in need of still in year 2 and where we could focus our time and energy.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
Karen, I think I asked you this before, so I apologize if I'm asking again. But you have a total of 2 mentees this year?
I do.
You do, okay. Is that, when you do your mentor work, which I know is so very valuable, is that something where you meet every month or every week? How involved is that? Not that I need specifics, but I'm just sort of curious.
So it's dependent on the person. I actually meet with Darlene at least once a week, if not twice a week. I meet with Michelle every other week.
Oh, okay, all right, so that's really in-depth. Thank you for sharing that.
Any other questions from the school committee? Thank you.
Thanks.
And on to, without looking at my agenda, I'm assuming you're next. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a little bit more depth in my report, but I won't go through every word. We have some celebrations, which I'm very happy about. Greta, our food service director, was recognized as a Kale Blazer for her work with Farm to School, and to continue the pun, she got a beautiful bouquet of kale and flowers. It actually was very nice. So we're very proud that Greta was recognized, and the district is continuing to support the work of Farm to School, and we were able to have a contingent of folks including members of the school committee, the mayor, Senator Comerford was there with us, and they were able to have a lunch prepared by our middle school food service staff. We even were able to feed the press that was present, and they were all impressed with the quality of the food. So that was a wonderful thing. We also were able to celebrate Brielle Wadello as the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents Excellence in Award and Excellence recipient. So she was nominated from the high school staff and selected by me to be the recipient. I was not able to attend the dinner, but Karen did, as the representative of the district, to present the actual certificate. But I was able to go to the high school and embarrass her in class with balloons and a bouquet to inform her that she had been selected. We also have a number of field trips going out, and Shane and Nate actually, I think, referenced some where they talked about the Key Club going to AEL to read to our preschoolers. We also have National Honor Society doing some in-district trips, and some of our elementary classrooms, and they are embodying our social emotional learning work with focusing on kindness at this time of the year. So it's wonderful to see how those qualities are being wrapped into a variety of things across the district. And I'm also very happy to say that since you folks approved the IT, the help desk, forgot what he's called, manager, when Matt started as our help desk manager, there were over 400 IT tickets sitting in the queue, and those were able to be gone through, prioritized, and now on average there are about 20 a day. So he deals with them, he prioritizes, filters them out to the correct IT staff who can deal with it most efficiently and most quickly. And at this point, there is a response generally within 24 hours. A resolution may take a little bit longer depending on what the issue is, but the time for response for our IT issues for our staff and students has dramatically improved. So I'm very pleased and appreciate that you allowed us to move in that direction. So staffing, no surprise, we're talking about staffing. Some of the public comment talked about staffing. So Karen and I are continuing to interview. We had interviews yesterday for a number of positions, and I think I shared this in the past, but we'll share it again. At this point, Karen and I are interviewing all of our support staff applicants, including instructional assistants, building monitors, substitutes for any of our positions, because we want to ensure that we get every applicant in for an interview. And when positions were posted individually per school, principals were interviewing their few candidates, and then at times the remaining candidates were not necessarily seen by other administrators in the district who also had openings. So at this point, we're doing those interviews, recommending applicants to building positions. And of course, the principals always have the final say, but it does help because we're able to match the applicant with the positions in the district they're most interested in. So that's been, we find, quite effective. And this week, we even hired a building monitor, we hired some substitute teachers, and we have been hiring administrative assistant substitutes, a position that has not been officially recruited for and utilized in the district, but we have that now, and we have several people who've applied in that regard. So I'm pleased with that process. We also contracted with a staffing agency, and we've had a number of applicants who've come in for IA and building monitor positions through that agency. We do still have some positions open. I included them in your packet. Based on the administrative meeting we had yesterday, we are still looking for 2 school psychologists, 2 speech pathologists, 1 BCBA, and 8 IAs, which are represented across the district, primarily at 4 Corners and the high school and the middle school. Those are the 3 buildings still looking for the bulk of the IAs. But we are continuing to hire, and unfortunately, it doesn't help us any, but it is very clear from my superintendent collaboration that this is an issue seen across the region and the Commonwealth. It is not unique to Greenfield. Even districts that are typically have very good reputations and do pay somewhat more than we do for positions, have greater numbers of vacancies than we're seeing at this point. So it's a very unfortunate pattern across the region. So illness, speaking about unfortunate patterns across the region, no surprise, we have seen an uptick in illness during this time of the season, students and staff. As of today, as an example, we had 254 students district-wide that were absent with a variety of illness. There is no specific uptake. We are seeing flu, we are seeing some RSV, pink eye, hand, foot, and mouth, and some just generic viral illness where people have a fever and there's no identified source of that illness. Melissa Bednarski, our nurse leader, communicates with Meg Tudrin from the health department at least once a week to look at what patterns we're seeing across the city. And at this point, based on their most recent conversation, the pattern we're seeing in our schools mirrors that which is being seen in the city. So, pink eye?
Did you say minus the pink? Yeah.
Oh, minus the pink eye.
Minus the pink eye.
I was surprised to hear there was a rash of pink eye across the city, but just with the students. We are continuing to provide information to families about ways to, keep students healthy. We have another vaccine clinic coming up at Newton on December 20th, and there is an update. I had posted the flyer, and then Meg gave Melissa an update that for the first approximately 125 people who are at this vaccine clinic, there will be a $25 gift card available. I'm not quite sure to where, but that's a nice surprise for people if they sign up and get a gift card. Our custodians are continuing with disinfecting as needed. We still have masks available for those who'd like them in all of our buildings. Of course, we encourage continued hand washing. Hand sanitizer is available. So we're working to put all the mitigation strategies in place that we can. Melissa and I were talking today about the fact that, at this point, even though it is cool to cold out, at times offering the ventilation rather than a closed room, even with an air purifier, would be a better alternative. But I realize we're balancing, 25 degrees. So, but those are all pieces. We are still very attentive to the health needs and monitoring them, and I'll keep you up to date. I already shared the vaccine clinic. We had, Jean, I'm speaking about the re-envisioning, but I don't know if you would prefer to do that. Okay. We had the first meeting with our staff to discuss the re-envisioning our school facilities options. This was middle school and high school staff. We did get some very good questions that will help me gather some additional data for all of you when we present the options and the pros and cons and remaining factors. And then we have an elementary meeting scheduled for mid-January. I almost said July. That would be late. Mid-January. So we're using part of staff meeting time, which is why the dates are the way they are. Those are scheduled staff meetings. Strategic planning, the third meeting was held this past Monday. This was a continuation looking at data, and now it moves into the survey and interview and focus group period, and that is anticipated to be wrapped up in March. So at this stage, that's what we're moving into. They continue to collate the data from all of our sessions, and that is helping to inform the survey and some of the focus group and interview questions. And then lastly, I'm happy to share that I had applied for a Improving Ventilation and Air Quality grant to address in part the cost of replacing the energy exchange units, energy recovery units. I apologize, thank you.
Energy recovery units, they live on the top of the middle school.
I know they're on the
Yes.
roof, yes, I'd like them to remain on the roof. Those are responsible for air exchange and also responsible for some of the heat for our middle school, and they are in need of replacement. So Eric and I and Andy have been working with George and Carol Collins from the city to apply for the grant and to do the work. So I received the grant, we were awarded the grant. It does pay for a study and creation of bid specs by an expert for us. So George is reaching out on our behalf to identify a vendor for that. And it does, it would help to pay the cost of replacing the 4 units. I did make a capital request of the balance. That is the only capital request that was made this year for a variety of reasons. But, so the balance is pending from capital, but we're starting that work with reaching out to the engineer or whatever qualification of vendor would be required for that. So, and then we've started the budget process, and I know we are all extremely excited.
Thank you. And questions from the school committee about the superintendent's report? Anyone? Member Martini, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you in regards to the IT piece. I wondered if there is a particular part of the technology and items that we have that drives a lot of the tickets or things that need to be resolved. Is there something that we could strategically work to improve in terms of what we own that would reduce the demand in that particular area?
I don't know where the tickets are coming from. I didn't think to ask Joel that level of detail. I was thrilled to hear we were down to about 20. But what I can speak to is that in our the COVID grants, the ESSER grants, we have almost $1 million allocated for upgrade of technology. That includes basically everything that is technological. It's teacher desktops, it is student Chromebooks, it is the smart boards, it is wireless. Basically, everything needs to be redone. And in part, that's why there was no capital request from me for technology this year, because we've utilized grant funding. So we're actually in process, Joel has advertised for a technology advisory committee for the staff so that they can have input in the updates that we make. We have some interest. We're trying to get some additional staff to see if they'd be interested, but the staff who participate in that will have the opportunity to do some field testing and participate in some demos of things. But a few things that we've seen is that the equipment that we use is not uniform across the buildings, even classroom to classroom within a building. And so some of the challenges that creates is that we have to have a very vast number of parts to replace or to update, even toner. Joel had shared the numbers of different toners that we need to have on site to address the different types of printers and copiers. It's about 80 different types, which is basically unmanageable. So we're replacing everything, basically.
Okay, thank you. And I had one other thing, which I guess is not so much a question, or maybe it is, but in regards to the staffing and the specific positions that we continue to struggle to fill, school psychologists, speech pathologists, a BCBA, and IAs. It's just striking to me that these gaps in staffing are really centered around students with disabilities. These kids make use of those specific staff in a school district frequently for all different kinds of things. And if we aren't able to staff those positions, then we're not going to be able to effectively do things like evaluations, re-evaluations, specific assessments, consultations and implementation of behavior plans, accommodations, things like that with teachers, as well as the direct services that a student may have on an IEP.
So if, what I didn't share publicly but is included in your summary is that we have contracted for a number of the services, so it's not quite the picture that you just shared. Unfortunately, contracting for school psychology work, speech pathology work, and BCBA work is extremely costly. So we do have vendors in place for those services, but we certainly would appreciate and value staff that work for the district to fill those positions, and they would be able to do more of work than we're able to do with contracted folks. I will share, we're pleased to say that 2 of our recently retired staff have remained on to do part-time contracted work with us, which is nice that they've wanted to remain connected to the district. And certainly, there's a variety of students and situations that are affected by any of the staff vacancies, but the staff that we have has been exceptionally flexible, and but we continue to look. I will share again in my communications with other superintendents. I had a conversation today with one that said they've been looking for school psychologists for 2 years. So, I had an interview with someone who is applying to a master's program in school psychology. They want to be a substitute teacher, and I said, please keep calling me because we may have a spot for you. But they're going to sub for us, but there's also been a lot of conversation at the superintendent level about communicating with the state Department of Education and our legislators about the fact that the pipeline for many of these positions is not what it was. Many of the college programs are not getting the applicants for these types of programs, and so the folks that we have available to choose from are becoming less, and ways that some of the public comment is talking about districts banding together and working to impact legislation, and we're trying to do the same around staffing and talking with higher education around ways to recruit for these types of programs. So, I'm sharing what I hope is a short-term issue, but I am not necessarily sure that it is a short-term solution. So it's impacted on various levels. But if people aren't going into these programs in college, this is going to be a longer-term issue.
Member Martini, are you all set? Do you have more questions?
I see Member Ekstrom has a hand up, so.
And okay, and then Member Deneve, go ahead.
Just anecdotally, and having to find people like this to work with our family, Western Massachusetts is something of a wasteland for any services in relation to...
Go a little closer to your microphone.
Sorry. In any services related to mental health or assistance for people and things like that. I mean, we, this is oversharing, as I always do, but my daughter's psychiatrist is retiring, which she absolutely deserves to retire. She's been doing it for a long time. We've been working with her, and I asked her if she had any recommendations of anyone in Western Mass, and she said, no, because there just isn't any, and there isn't anyone to do the work. Just anecdotally sharing.
Member Deneve, go ahead.
Sorry, I think half of my questions were answered. So just sort of, I know this is sort of a vague thing to ask, but are you getting any feedback from these applicants as to why they're not taking the positions? Are they finding, or can they just cherry pick whatever they want because there are so few of them? Or is there something that we could be doing to make things more attractive other than obviously salary, if we could? I'm just wondering if you're getting a sense of what they're seeking, if maybe we could talk
Again,
about
this
that
is
at some point.
this is anecdotally.
I know, it's very vague.
No, it's all right. I think I understand your question. I will say that the IA applicants, the sub-applicants, building monitor folks that we've been interviewing, the vast majority are accepting positions. Because I know that at the last meeting, Andy shared we had about 20 IA openings, and now we have 8. So clearly,
Okay.
people are accepting positions with us. There aren't a lot of applicants. And again, that was a theme talked about with amongst the superintendents, where we used to have pools of applicants for every position. At times now, if there's one, we're happy to see the one.
Okay.
We're also competing. So applicants can choose to be closer to home. That's some of what we've heard. They're happy to be closer to home. They changed their mind. They stayed in their current position. So it's wide, varied reasons.
I was just curious, because when you said interview weekly, I was thinking, well, how many people are you seeing weekly? But if you're only seeing one, if you're lucky, that's kind of, that makes sense.
But the IA positions, the sub-positions, often we're doing multiple in a week. The places where we are not seeing the applicants are the certified folks, the psychologists, speech paths, BCBA. Those are much more challenging to get applicants. Even the staffing agency that I contracted with has not forwarded one applicant for any of these positions.
And most of those IA positions and the substitute positions begin at minimum wage, correct?
No, they begin where, a position that is commensurate with their experience.
Their step?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Some of them are first step, which is not necessarily minimum wage, but some of them are first step because they're students who are just coming out of college, things along those lines. But even some of those folks come in with years of working at camps and other student-related functions. So, but I do place them on salary scales based on their previous experience. Did that answer?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Member Martini and then Member Johnson-Musad.
I just wanted to say I feel your pain about the difficulty in finding providers in Western Mass for certain things. I'm well aware that there is a huge lack of mental health providers for children in the area, and in terms of certified professionals who can deliver an evaluation or something like that. I have had children wait well over a year just to get through a wait list for something like that. So I'm wondering, I know that the district contracts with an outside psychologist, for example, when we need to do an eligibility evaluation or what have you for special education. But given the overall lack of providers and long waits, I am wondering if we are we staying afloat in terms of meeting timelines for evaluation and reevaluation for children, and in providing services to which children are entitled based on their IEP?
That's a conversation I'd have to have with Dr. Dickinson. So,
Thank you. Oh, one other question. I wondered if we have done an analysis in terms of competitiveness, because like you said, we are competing for very few. So have we evaluated the pay scale for these positions in terms of what is competitive for them?
all of these positions are part of the Unit A contract. So they're part of the teacher's contract. So any, preparation that we do moving into any type of negotiations includes looking at salaries from the region.
Thank you.
I was just wondering about, you were talking about kind of the pipeline, and I'm just curious about what are the incentives? I mean, if you're a psychologist and you can get called in on a contract basis and get paid more, then why would people want to be a school psychologist, I guess?
Besides the fact that we're lovely, lovely people, stability. If you work in a district, you know what your salary is, you know what your work day year is. You know, if you're contracting, it depends what work comes your way. Insurance, you know, benefits are available, things like that. Oftentimes, professionals that could get a higher salary if they were private have families, they'd like to be on a schedule consistent with kids and things like that. So, and sometimes they like having the camaraderie of a department, of a building to be with, you know, a guaranteed professional group of colleagues. So there are some appeals more. If it is straight a financial discussion, then, I mean, I have yet to see a situation where any district would beat what these folks can charge as a contractor. But I hope and believe that many of the people in these fields are not solely looking at it from a financial basis.
Any further questions? I was surprised. I have a question. I did not see in your report that you met with some city councilors about the budget.
I met with 2 city councilors about the budget. Councilor Healy had asked, you know, had mentioned he had some questions, and based on our brief conversation, I knew they would be in some detail and not necessarily the city council meeting with my brief update being the format. So we agreed we would meet. So Councilor Healy and Councilor Bullock came in and met with Andy and I, and we reviewed the school budget, and I answered all their questions, and they seemed to be satisfied when we met. It was just over an hour, and it was, in my estimation, and Andy's too, I'll speak for Andy, an outstanding conversation, and I think we were able to provide a good amount of information. So I was very pleased to have the opportunity to meet with them.
Thank you. I was happy you took the opportunity to do that. I think it's important for them to be able to have a forum for that, so thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, we will move on. I think just one thing I wanted to mention, which is, it is not on the agenda tonight, but I have not forgotten, and I'm actively working on a superintendent evaluation process, and I haven't really been happy with what I found so far from other districts, so I'm going to continue to look and work with Liz LaFond to find some options to bring, and hopefully for January I'll have some options for different tools that we could look at. So that's my report and my update, I believe, and I made a list for subcommittees because I think there's a few things. Jean, did you want to add anything about the reimagining facilities?
Yes. Our last meeting is scheduled in January after school committee meets. And so we will have our committee meet, Elizabeth and Glenn will meet after that meeting with the superintendent and put together our report, which we will bring to the February meeting of the school committee.
Thank you. Any questions for Jean about that? Okay. And how about policy? Anything from policy, Glenn? Okay. And budget? No, you guys haven't met? Okay. And then I just had 2 quick things. I serve as the school committee representative to planning and construction. And I just wanted to update this committee because the work we started actually literally yesterday at our planning and construction meeting is going to give me a great deal of pause and maybe even nightmares, because I did see the basement of City Hall yesterday, which I wouldn't wish on absolutely anyone. Well, I think there's some common themes in what we see in the schools. We've spent a number of, maybe not hours, but a number of minutes at least at our school committee meetings and surplus property and divesting ourselves using the proper process of surplus property in the schools. And it is very obvious that there is some of that that needs to go on in the city. as well as moving us into the 21st century in terms of document storage. And so I'm telling you all this because I really feel like for any resident of Greenfield who wants to be involved, I think it's an amazing opportunity to be able to serve in a capacity where you can think about how the city can better use its facilities. And the other piece is I do hope that we can learn some things that we can bring back that will help the schools at some point in terms of making room for people by storing boxes off-site, storing paper off-site, things like that. I learned of, after one of my children goes to Four Corners, and after we did the Four Corners surplus property at the last meeting, I literally went up to Principal Browning and said, "Did you gain an entire classroom by getting rid of all this stuff?" He said, "No, but I can tell you, Angelo Thomas, the why am I forgetting? Phys ed teacher, is thrilled to have his storage room back because all of these things were in the storage room." And I say all this because it impacts quality of life, it impacts morale, it impacts safety. And so to undertake these things is both wildly inefficient, but incredibly illuminating. So I report back that I'm a part of this process and I'm pretty excited about it. And then the only other quick thing about that, and then I'll open it for discussion, is related to that. Well, I guess not related, but in my mind, they're kind of related because they're city-side things. I do also serve during this time of year on what's called the Capital Improvements Committee as the representative from the school district, where we actually have the opportunity as a committee to look at all of the capital from all of the departments in the city that is being requested for the year. And there are three of us. It's myself as the representative from the schools. It's Vice Chair Wall, because she is separately Chair of Planning and Construction. And then it is also Chris Forgy, who is Chair of Ways and Means. And she serves because she's Chair of Ways and Means, I believe. Is that correct, Mayor Wiedegartner?
Yes, that's
right. And we finished our work yesterday and made our recommendations that then go to the mayor. It is absolutely what we do, non-binding. The city council and the mayor can do whatever they like, but it does give an opportunity for a body that's not the mayor and not the city council to have these folks in front of them and hear about capital needs and make some have some discussion around that. So that work, once I have it cataloged, I will actually bring it back here so folks can see that. And that is probably the longest subcommittee report I've ever personally given. And then happy to take questions. I saw Mayor Wiedegartner first and then Member Deneve.
I just wanted to second your emotion about the City Hall. You'll go on to other buildings, but the City Hall's pretty bad. And it needed to be brought to the attention. I asked Jean to tour all the buildings, and but I said, please start there, and don't miss the storage rooms. So
I will have nightmares because we did not miss them.
No, it's a continuing problem for the city. And I do want to acknowledge both of your participation in the Capital Improvement Committee meetings, and thank you for that, because those are important too, and it's important to see just exactly what it takes to run the city, just from the standpoint of equipment and vehicles and buildings and different things. It's all important, and that includes the schools as well, school facilities.
Thank you, Mayor. Member Deneve, go ahead.
I was just wondering if you could tell us and the folks at home who is on the Planning and Construction Committee?
I would pass that to Vice Chair Wall, and I would make it clear that she would be speaking as Chair of Planning and Construction, which is completely separate from her job as a school committee, elected school committee member, because she knows. I actually don't know if I know who all the members are.
I was just trying to keep it all straight, because you told us who was on the capital.
It's big. It's much
planning.
Bigger, which is why, yeah, it's much bigger.
So now I'm thinking of the other one and gotta get in my head.
I think it might be on the website too. Let me, while you try, I'm gonna look and see if it's on the website.
Probably not accurate on the website.
Yeah, well, we can work with it, but that'll be better.
In fact, we are looking for new members for planning and construction, if anybody would like to join us and go on these tours. It is somebody from the school, Emily Ish, who is with, the planning board. I'm trying to think who, Nancy Hazard,
Mike Pratt,
Mike Pratt,
and a vacancy.
yeah, and there's a vacancy. But there's another vacancy.
There's another vacant, oh, yeah, Carol Collins, I think, is almost official at this point, or might, yeah. So those are the folks, and that, it is fairly accurate, it's like 90% accurate on their planning and construction website, with people's terms and everything there, too.
Thank you. So
It
get on it,
is-
citizens, go get your, go fill that vacancy.
It's
It
a
is.
really cool one to serve on. We actually, a month or so ago, toured the new library under construction. We got to see that, which was really cool. Please, Mayor, go ahead.
It's especially important, and it's in the charter, that these members have some familiarity and experience with buildings and construction and those types of things. That's the kind of person that we're looking for, hence why you hear and see some of those names on there.
Anything else for subcommittees? I think that's probably pretty thorough. Mr. Paquette, a budget update, please.
You have in your packets the update as of the 9th of December. If you look and see if you were to actually compare the prior month to this month, you'll see that the quote-unquote negative at the end is now a positive. That's due to we've been starting to now with the grants being finalized and approved. This round, we are able to do our first round of reclassification of expenses, primarily of the special education tuition expenses out of the local budget into the special education grant. And as the grants get approved and things of that nature, we will continue to do that, including transferring expenses to revolving accounts such as circuit breaker. If you remember, that's why if you were to look and picking on the tuition line, if you were to look at the combined special education tuition in the local budget, you will see that it is significantly over, looking like it's in a deficit, but we plan on using $1.3 million of circuit breaker revenues to address that, as well as some other revolving funds to do that. So as those come in, we will continue to reclass those. So just to piggyback off of what Dr. DeBarge presented regarding personnel, that still comes into play regarding our projections to year end. We have finalized, we've done our line in the sand as to realigning the budget with the work that we did with Dr. DeBarge's ASKP, excuse me. I know. I know. And payroll and stuff. So that is going to be, we've got the reclasses to address those. So when you look and see, we've got personnel aligned as to where they are currently for this year. That will be reflected in the next report. With that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for the school, from the school committee for Mr. Paquette? Mayor Rita Gardner, go ahead. And then Member Nanine.
I'm looking at a Greenfield Public Schools year-to-date budget report fiscal 2023, and I think I see a deficit in the transportation.
Yes, we have the transportation revolving account, you know, where we, because of we get fees from providing transportation services to other communities, and we also have an agreement with Gil Montague where we are sharing part of our transportation coordinator, and those will be receiving funds from them to offset that. But right, it's all being charged there, and then when those funds come in, we will then reclass those. So.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I saw you do like okay. It was just a flourish, probably. Yeah. Other budget questions? I forgot one thing that is actually tangentially related to budget, and that is The city's new finance director, Diana Schindler, is here tonight, and just give us a, and we've worked together a little bit already. It's great to have you join us tonight, so thank you, and we look forward to working with you further. Anything else for Andy or on the budget? All right. Oh, the superintendent goals.
Wait, one more thing.
Yeah.
Thank you, both of you, for getting everything aligned. I've been.
Is your microphone on?
It's on. I've been beating a dead horse for at least a year. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay. Item number 8 on the agenda is the superintendent goals, which we will, due to a technical difficulty, if you look in your packet, you will see why we need to delay it for a vote on this for the evening. It does look beautiful in Google Drive. It did not print correctly. You can't read what it says in the cells for the goals. And so obviously we cannot discuss and vote on that. And I have already had a brief conversation with Christine about a better solution than all of this paper. And so we're going to talk about that when she and I meet again next Monday. So unfortunately, we'll have to move past this one for tonight and go into the surplus items at Newton School. So I'd like to actually take, please, go ahead.
I'm just curious, was there a deadline that we needed to have that done by, so that, like, we would move into that at, like, a short?
Ideally, they would have probably been done in July or August. But every year we get better.
That's fine. I just didn't know if we had somehow set our own internal deadline.
No, and I mean, I think we should work toward that. And I know you and I are working on some calendar, like timeline stuff, and you know, we want to work toward having all of that in there and doing better every year. Yeah.
That's fine.
Yes, thank you.
It keeps getting pushed down the pike, so I was just curious.
Yes, thank you.
I will assure you, I am actively working to achieve goals, so I'm not hanging back waiting until they get voted on, but the technicality.
All important points, thank you. So the surplus items at Newton, I'd like to do without, if there's no objections, items 9 and 10 as a consent item for both the curriculum and the library items. Any objection, voice it now. Okay, so we've got in your materials a list of the surplus items for Newton School curriculum as well as library. Oh wait, we should do a motion. So I motion to declare both the curriculum and library books at Newton Elementary as submitted on the weeding list as surplus items. You're both ready, go.
So moved.
So moved.
And,
It's a tie.
and a second.
I'll second.
Either one is fine, Susan Farber. It was the mayor and Jean Wall. Okay, and the second was from Member Johnson Musad. Any discussion of this? I'm just so glad it keeps moving forward, right? And I heard at the beginning just AEL is left. Is that correct?
That is the last library. We don't need to do the high school because Jessica Pollock has been able to
And that one
keep that up,
fairly new,
being in
yeah.
her position. So this is the last library that needs this level of work. And
Awesome. And can you report back on how much space, physical space, they get back at Newton after this is over? That's just a joke. That's
I don't know, it might be worth sharing. We'll see.
Inches, not feet.
Any further discussion? Member Martini, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Is this the last of the curriculum or instructional materials that you are also moving out, or are you still
We can
searching through things and collecting
So
things?
it is not the last. We are continuing to identify things that need to be addressed. But this is, I think that it is safe to say this is the vast majority. But there may be some smaller requests as we go through the rest of the year.
Anything else? Okay, so the motion is for approving the surplus for the library books and the curriculum books, and we'll take a vote. Any abstentions? Any no votes? That passes unanimously. Thank you. And we're on to the final business item, which is approving a job description for the Director of Early Childhood. And it would be great, Christine, if you could give us just a little introduction to how we got here.
Sure. So as you, most of you would know, I don't want to make the assumption that you're all aware. Currently, our principal at the Academy of Early Learning is working 3 days a week. And apparently, the history I've been provided is that's been that way for some time. But given the needs of the students, given the needs of the program, at this point, Mrs. Putnam, who's serving as our principal, and I have talked numerous times this year, and we've come to the agreement that we need a full-time administrator in that building. The reason that this is Director of Early Childhood is that our early childhood serves students without disabilities, but one of the things that public school districts need to do is provide an opportunity for students who are between the ages of 3 and 5 or kindergarten age to receive special education services. And one of the most effective and efficient ways to do that is to provide an opportunity for them to attend an integrated preschool program, meaning we have students without disabilities and students with disabilities. So because of that, there is a great amount of special education knowledge and work that needs to be done. So it is more effective to have one of the administrators or the administrator in the building be able to guide that work and to hold meetings with families to do transition from early intervention into the public school on behalf of AEL, potentially to write special education plans, to provide support to our staff regarding challenging students. So there's a variety of needs that it makes sense that we have someone preferably with a special education background. So that's why it's more Director of Early Childhood as opposed to a principal, because of those roles and because of the high special education and Section 504 need that we anticipate. That is also why this person I am suggesting would report to me and the Director of Pupil Services, depending on the need they are serving for that time. So if it's a special education programming issue, they would work with the Director of Pupil Services. If it's a traditional, I guess I'll say, building administrator issue, they would work with me.
Thank you. So we have the job description in the packet, and before we discuss as a committee, I would entertain a motion to approve as presented the Director of Early Childhood job description.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. And discussion or questions? All right, I'm not hearing any. Are we ready to go to a vote? Member Martinez, I'd like to give you ample time. You ready?
No questions, yes.
Okay. So we are voting on approving the job description. Are there any no votes? Any abstentions? So that passes unanimously. That is wonderful. Thank you, and thank you for the work to bring this forward.
Thank you for the approval.
How about any items for new business from the committee? Mayor Rita Gardner, please.
I may have missed it, but do we have an enrollment number for this year? I didn't know if I've missed it or not.
I don't think you missed it.
Okay.
We can certainly provide our October 1 data for you.
That'd be
Absolutely.
great. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yes, Secretary Ekstrom.
It isn't necessarily new business, but I just wanted to let everyone know that I was thinking about our calendars and trying to keep us all in line, and remember Deneve mentioning that it would be nice if we had a calendar of all conferences that were going on around throughout the year. So my intention is to sort of tackle all of that and do like a school committee relevant dates kind of things that in addition to showing when like Massey's having meetings or things like that, but would also be, when does the budget start? And when would this, I don't know, when there are subcommittee meetings, all of those would be scheduled, not scheduled, but are there for viewing so that everyone has an idea of the steps that we're going throughout the year. And because it is so cyclical, I could actually set it up to go for 5 years. So it would go through a couple of elections without needing a whole lot of hand-holding by whomever it is that's the secretary that's coming up. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Something I was really excited to get started on and then broke some parts, and so my typing is now a little bit less than efficient, so it's going to take a little bit of time, but it's sitting in my head as something that we've needed for a long time. So just want to share that.
Thank you. I think it's a good undertaking, and hopefully in January we could share at least a working draft or something. Yeah, we'll work on it. Related to the kind of snafu with the superintendent's goals and also kind of trying to manage better how we push out the information and the materials for this meeting, the agenda for this meeting, Lauren and the superintendent just today started a process of creating a shared Google Drive area rather than emailing everyone the materials and the agenda on the school committee, you would get it there, and there'd be a folder for each meeting, and you could see it there. And hopefully that will help with some of the craziness around this. And we're going to see if there's some other technological pieces that we can implement once we have a second to talk about it outside of the meeting and see what we can do. But for next meeting, for sure, you'll get a link to this shared Google Drive where all the materials will be rather than it emailed to you. I'm sorry, your microphone's on. In full disclosure, I did say, I said this may not be a universally acceptable way of managing it. So we will, we'll make accommodations as we would for our students. We will make accommodations for our school committee members for whatever they need. I understand. Anything else related to new business? All right, and you do have there a list of the correspondence, and as we talked about at the last meeting, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Member Martini, go ahead.
Sorry, I snuck in there at the last second. I was just thinking next month will be halfway through-ish this year, and we discussed quite a lot at previous meetings the last school year, and then since then we had an update in terms of student behavior and the challenges that we were seeing and have been seeing. And I was thinking that it might be a good time to have another update since we will be about halfway through this school year. I would like to know some information about what trends you are seeing and how implementation is going of the efforts that you've been making to deal with that particular issue, and also about attendance. So maybe we could hear about that at January's meeting.
I was trying to look, no, I was just trying to look peripherally to see, was she mad? Is she nodding? What is she? Yeah.
No.
I just couldn't see.
No,
Okay.
absolutely fine to share that information. I'm, the look on my face, I think, was while our student discipline, at least I haven't run the numbers right before this meeting, but at least from a perception is that it is drastically improved. Attendance is a substantial issue in the district. So my face was not that we needed to talk about it. It's that it's a very substantial issue, and without question impacts our students' academic performance. So it's an area of great need. So, but yes, we can definitely do a more detailed update.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Member Martini. Anything else? Member Johnson, go ahead.
I just would love if we could start the scheduling process for the organizational meeting sooner rather than later. I think it would help me to be able to attend, given some changes in my schedule since last year. So
The organizational meeting will be on the first school committee meeting of the year, as it always is.
no, it usually is a separate meeting before the first meeting of the year. Yeah, we have a special meeting.
City council has a special meeting, we don't. We do it
helped-
on our,
It would help the person who's elected chair to be able to prepare the agenda for the first meeting of the year if the organizational meeting happens
okay,
before
but that wasn't what it was done in the past. You can have a reason for changing it, but that's not how it was done in the
It
past.
is, that's how it was done when you came on board the first time. It wasn't an ordinary meeting, we had a special organizational meeting. That is the history of this committee. I don't know if you did it last year, but that is kind of the norm. And I know that some of our norms.
Okay, so you would like an organizational meeting, and what are your parameters around what you're requesting?
I'm just requesting that we start the scheduling process for it sooner rather than later,
Oh,
just so
okay.
I can chime in and have my availability taken into account when it's scheduled.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's not my recollection at all that we had a separate meeting, but I could be remembering it differently, and I apologize if I'm wrong, of course.
We might not have last year, but that was the norm, I think, before.
I can confirm that last year on January 6th, we had a special meeting organization.
Thank you, thank you.
I think it's generally the first Wednesday of January.
Oh, do it on the first Wednesday. Thank you.
Might be worth reviewing our policy about the organizational meetings that's in the policy handbook.
We follow it to the letter every time we have the meeting.
That is, the scheduling of it is part of it. So that's what I
I'm
mean.
remembering it incorrectly, but we certainly can work on the scheduling piece of it. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, so I will, at this point, look for a motion to enter into executive session for exemption reason number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares, and I do declare, as well as exemption reason number 7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirement, which is the approval of executive session minutes from the November 9, 2022 meeting, and the committee will not return to open session. Do I have a motion to enter executive session?
So moved.
Multiple motions. Any seconds?
Second.
That was Member Martini, I believe. Yep. And we do have to take a roll call vote for that, so I have my sheet somewhere. Give me 1 second. Oh, I put it away. It's okay. I need your cheat thing. Yeah. Member Johnson Musad
Yes?
and Ekstrom. Yes. And me, I'm a yes. And Mayor Wiedegartner. And Member Wall.
Yes.
And Member Martini.
Yes.
And Member Deneve.
Yes.
And that is unanimous to go into executive session. And a motion to adjourn the public session, please.
So moved.
Member Martini, do I have a second?
Second.
And we will vote on that. Any abstentions? Any noes? The public session is adjourned at whatever time it is, 7:34. Thank you.